When Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer hit theaters in 2023, audiences weren't just witnessing the birth of the atomic bomb, they were experiencing an auditory masterpiece that would redefine how music can amplify cinematic drama. Ludwig Göransson's haunting score doesn't merely accompany the film, it becomes the very heartbeat of moral complexity, the sonic embodiment of scientific brilliance colliding with devastating consequences. Picture this. You're sitting in a darkened theater, watching Cillian Murphy's piercing blue eyes as J. Robert Oppenheimer grapples with equations that will change the world forever. But it's not just Murphy's performance that sends chills down your spine. It's the way Göransson's music seems to crawl inside your mind, making you feel the weight of every decision, every moral compromise, every sleepless night that led to Trinity. What makes this soundtrack extraordinary isn't just its technical brilliance. Though Göransson's use of everything from traditional orchestral instruments to synthesized sounds that mimic Geiger counters is nothing short of genius. It's how the composer manages to translate the abstract concepts of quantum physics and moral philosophy into pure emotional experience. When you hear those discordant strings during the security clearance hearings, you're not just watching a man defend his past, you're feeling the paranoia, the claustrophobia, the way fear can twist truth into something unrecognizable. Göransson faced an unprecedented challenge. How do you score the story of a man who created the most destructive force in human history? How do you capture the duality of scientific wonder and existential dread? The answer lies in the composer's revolutionary approach to musical storytelling. He doesn't simply provide emotional cues, he creates sonic landscapes that mirror Oppenheimer's internal journey from curious physicist to haunted creator. The genius of this score lies in its restraint as much as its power. In moments where lesser composers might resort to bombastic orchestration, Göransson chooses silence, or a single, trembling note that speaks volumes about isolation and regret. When the music does swell, during the Trinity test sequence, for instance, it's not triumphant. It's terrifying in its beauty, magnificent in its horror, perfectly capturing the complex emotions of witnessing something that should never have been possible. This isn't just background music. It's psychological warfare conducted through sound. Göransson understands that the real drama of Oppenheimer's story isn't in the explosions or the political maneuvering, but in the quiet moments of realization, the gradual understanding of what has been unleashed upon the world. His score transforms these internal struggles into visceral experiences that audiences can feel in their bones. Today, we're going to dissect this masterpiece note by note, exploring how Göransson's innovative techniques don't just enhance Nolan's vision, they complete it, creating a cinematic experience that lingers long after the credits roll. Much like the radiation from that first atomic test continues to echo through history, that haunting tick we've been hearing, it's more than just a sonic motif. It's the fundamental building block of Göransson's entire compositional strategy. The composer didn't stumble upon this sound by accident. He meticulously crafted it to represent the relentless march of time toward an inevitable world-changing moment. But here's where Göransson's genius truly shines. He takes this simple, almost primitive sound and weaves it into a complex musical ecosystem that mirrors the intricate scientific processes Oppenheimer himself was navigating. Listen carefully to how the ticking evolves throughout the film. In early scenes, it's subtle, almost subliminal, a gentle reminder that time is always moving forward. But as we approach the Trinity test, this innocent metronome becomes increasingly aggressive, multiplying into overlapping rhythms that create a sense of temporal chaos. Göransson is literally scoring the acceleration of history, the way scientific discovery can spiral beyond human control. What's revolutionary about Göransson's approach is his seamless integration of electronic and acoustic elements. Where traditional film composers might choose one or the other, Göransson creates a sonic hybrid that perfectly mirrors the film's central theme, the collision between human ambition and technological power. Those synthesized sounds that echo Geiger counterclicks aren't just clever sound design. They're musical instruments in their own right, contributing to melodies that feel both futuristic and deeply human. The harmonic language Göransson employs is equally sophisticated. He deliberately avoids traditional resolution patterns, keeping audiences in a state of musical suspension that mirrors Oppenheimer's own psychological state. When you hear those string sections, notice how they never quite land where your ear expects them to. This isn't accidental. It's a carefully constructed representation of uncertainty, of living in a world where the old rules no longer apply. Consider the way Göransson handles the film's multiple timelines. Rather than using different musical themes for each period, he employs subtle variations in instrumentation and rhythm to distinguish between past, present, and the haunting specter of consequence. The black and white sequences, representing the security clearance hearings, feature more stripped-down arrangements, often dominated by that relentless ticking and sparse piano lines that feel like interrogation itself made audible. The color sequences, depicting Oppenheimer's scientific journey, bloom with richer orchestration, but even here, Göransson maintains an underlying sense of unease. The music swells with the excitement of discovery, but there's always something lurking beneath. A musical shadow that reminds us of the ultimate destination of all this brilliant research. What makes this score particularly effective is Göransson's understanding that the atomic bomb isn't just a weapon, it's a symbol of humanity's capacity to create beyond its ability to control. His music captures this paradox perfectly, creating moments of genuine beauty that are simultaneously deeply unsettling. When the orchestra soars during scenes of scientific breakthrough, we feel both the exhilaration of discovery and the creeping dread of its implications. This architectural approach to composition, building complex emotional structures from simple, powerful elements, is what separates Göransson's work from conventional film scoring. He's not just providing emotional punctuation, he's creating a parallel narrative told entirely through sound. This parallel narrative that Göransson constructs isn't just metaphorical, it's surprisingly literal in its connection to the actual physics that fascinated Oppenheimer and his team. The composer spent months researching not just the historical events, but the scientific principles underlying atomic theory, and this deep dive into quantum mechanics profoundly shaped his musical choices. When you hear those oscillating electronic tones that weave throughout the score, you're actually listening to Göransson's musical interpretation of atomic vibration frequencies. The concept of resonance, so crucial to both physics and music, becomes a central organizing principle in Göransson's composition. Just as atoms can be excited to higher energy states through precise frequency manipulation, the composer uses specific harmonic intervals to create mounting tension that feels almost scientifically inevitable. Those moments when the music seems to build towards something catastrophic aren't just dramatic flourishes. They're musical representations of chain reactions, where each note triggers the next in an unstoppable cascade. Perhaps nowhere is this scientific approach more evident than in Göransson's treatment of the Trinity test sequence. Rather than scoring the explosion itself, which famously occurs in complete silence, he focuses on the mathematical precision of the countdown. Each number becomes a musical event, with the orchestra gradually stripping away layers until we're left with the stark reality of what's about to unfold. The absence of music during the blast isn't emptiness, It's the musical equivalent of the split second when atoms are torn apart, when the fundamental forces of nature are unleashed. This use of silence as a compositional tool reveals Göransson's sophisticated understanding of how music functions in cinema. The moments without score become as powerful as the moments with it, creating a kind of musical negative space that forces audiences to confront the magnitude of what they're witnessing. When the music does return after the blast, tentative, changed, somehow smaller, it reflects the new reality that Oppenheimer and his team must now inhabit. The genius of this approach becomes clear when you consider how Göransson handles the film's exploration of quantum mechanics. Oppenheimer was fascinated by the uncertainty principle, the idea that at the subatomic level, reality becomes probabilistic rather than deterministic. Göransson translates this concept into musical terms through his use of what musicologists call prepared uncertainty, moments where the harmonic progression could resolve in multiple directions, keeping listeners in a state of quantum superposition until the music finally collapses into a specific emotional state. This scientific precision extends to Göransson's orchestration choices as well. The way he layers instruments mirrors the way scientists layer hypotheses. Each new voice in the orchestra represents another variable in an increasingly complex equation. When the full ensemble plays together during the film's most intense moments, we're hearing the musical equivalent of the Manhattan Project itself, brilliant individual contributions combining to create something unprecedented and potentially devastating. But Göransson's masterstroke lies in his recognition that science, for all its precision, is ultimately a human endeavor driven by very human emotions: curiosity, ambition, fear, and the intoxicating rush of discovery. His score captures this duality by grounding even the most abstract musical concepts in recognizably human rhythms, heartbeats, breathing patterns, the nervous energy of brilliant minds working at the edge of the possible. This humanization of scientific process through music creates an emotional bridge that allows audiences to connect with concepts that might otherwise feel impossibly abstract. We may not understand the mathematics of nuclear fission, but we can feel its emotional weight through Göransson's carefully constructed sonic landscape.